Hello. I'm Miss Glitch, robot translator for Glitch Solar Move radio show.
Hi.
Next month, you will release music for robots on Warp Records. 5 tracks composed by you, Squarepusher, and performed by the robots of Z Machines. Amazing robots with 22 arms and 87 fingers. So my first question is, what you are interested in this project, human collaboration and robots?
For me, one of the most interesting things about it is that it begins to explore this twilight area between human performance and music that's made in the digital realm. So, I mean, music made with computers, or principally computers, so that music that's never actually had the touch of human hand to it. This area of music where robots are playing is fascinating for me, because on the one hand you have this conventional set of instruments. We have electric guitars, piano, drums. These instruments are so familiar to us through their usage in modern music. These sounds are so common, if you like, and they've got a very detailed history surrounding them that many people are aware of. So there are immediately these sets of references that are made when you use an electric guitar. However, when it's not being played by a human being, it starts to put a different spin on that history. So on the one hand, you know, the electric guitar, you hear it and you immediately think Hendrix, or these people who have shaped the history of that instrument, and yet when a robot is playing it, you have quite a different impression coming from the instrument, because suddenly all of the nuances and all of the typical techniques which human beings use to play the instrument are gone, and you've instead got a different set of approaches which are enabled by the use of the robot.
But one of the difference between human and robots is this capacity to generate emotion.
Well, it's not totally true to say that. What my idea is to explore whether robots or robot performance of music can be engaging on an emotional level. I mean, that's one question I'm trying to look at in this project, is to whether the robots get in the way of what I'm trying to express, or whether they actually enhance it, whether they bring something of their own to it, whether the robot character is, the robot characteristics of playing instruments are in some way interesting to the human ear. You know, these are all things which are unanswered for me, and still, you know, the project, okay, I've investigated this to an extent, but it's, you know, these questions, you know, there's no definite answers to these things, because of course it depends particularly on what robot you're using. You know, each one of it has different characteristics.
22 arm, 87 fingers. Did you ever seen robots like that?
Well, as I say, I mean, I think these things are very rare, and it's not so. Yeah, it's a one-off project. Of course, these things have a precedent. There are mechanical music-making machines out there, and of course there's a history to mechanical music as well. You know, the pianola, the barrel organ, music boxes. There are many devices out there, you know, which have done music performance in this mechanical fashion. However, this is a particularly modern and, for me, quite exciting version of that phenomenon.
Did you know the Z Machines before this experience?
No, and it's I happened to be introduced to the person who was running the project, and they very much wanted me to make a piece of music for them, so it just grew out of that, really. It was once I sensed the possibilities that were made available by particular machines, I was very insistent that we did more work together, you know. Sadly, the project has had a fairly because the robots themselves, because they're so expensive to maintain and stuff, that unfortunately I don't even know if they exist anymore. I think they've been dismantled. So, this is very, very much a one-off project. Yeah.
How did you work with the Z machines? Did you go in Japan to meet the androids?
So, the whole thing's been done sending data backwards and forwards. I didn't go to Japan, which was a shame, but then again, as I say, the project's was constrained time-wise because of the amount of money needed to maintain these things, and of course that money being somewhat scarce, the plane ticket to Japan just wasn't, unfortunately, part of the deal. But it's a lot of I suppose hard work involved in trying to establish exactly what these things can do, because they gave me a set of specifications for these robots, but in the end I had to do a lot of work myself to find out precisely what I could expect of these things. For example, how fast they can play, how many notes they can play at the same time, how many frets the 82-fingered thing can span, and so on. It's a work of investigation partly, and once that investigation was done, it was just trying to see how much I could get done in the remaining period in terms of compositions. A lot of this is really to do with trying to understand what these things are capable of, and then use them in a way that explores aspects of what these instruments are capable of that are areas which are impossible to explore using a human performer. So I'm trying to establish, the range of possibilities beyond what's possible using human beings to play guitars and drums. But as I say, in 4 weeks there's only so much you can do.
So you wrote some MIDI partitions for the androids?
Yeah. So there was files being sent from me to Japan, which were basically test files to try to establish. For example, taking the example of trying to establish the speed at which they could play consistently. So I'd send files and then just get them to send recordings back, playing those files at different tempos. So to see at what point the performance started to lose integrity, started to become unintelligible or useless. So there's a lot of transferring of data backwards and forwards, if you like. And then once they started to do this, making recordings and sending them back to me. So eventually you got the finished recordings from the compositions, mixed them in my studio, and that's what you have in front of you, the finished record.
Did you plan to play live with the Z machines?
Oh yeah, that would be amazing. It really would be. We're trying to look at it, but it's the funny thing is that these robot performers, in some way they're capable with these incredible things, but they're actually really cumbersome as well. They're incredibly difficult to move around. They are a proper science fiction creation in the sense that they can do some things incredibly well and other things they're just useless. They can't. It's like the Daleks in Doctor Who can't go upstairs, like a basic problem that you'd think a really advanced life form would have already kind of got over this kind of problem millennia ago. But no, it seems that to move these things around is going to be extremely difficult. I mean, it's about 7 tons of equipment. So, yeah.
Tom, let's speak about robots. Do you like them? Are you afraid by them?
Well, in a way, I mean, there's some funny side to that question, but I think part of what makes a project like this fascinating, and I think, but certainly for musicians, is that there is this sense that we, in some respects, could become obsolete. In the sense that certain tasks are simply better performed by robots, and there's obviously a very serious side to that question. In the sense, in the manufacturing sector, workers have over the last century continued to lose their jobs to such things. And whether this thing, in the car industry, people don't build cars. They're built by machines. That's a long-established phenomenon, and there is a sense of that in the world of music too. Whether whether actually there are certain tasks which you might as well delegate to a machine because it's cheaper and more reliable. I don't know. I mean, there's these economic forces are in some way quite philistine, you know, because there are qualities to human being performance which in my opinion can never be replicated by machines, robots, you know. And thus, in my view, they stand shoulder to shoulder. You just try to see what the capacities of each thing is. You know, a human being has much infinitely greater sensitivity. You know, these machines can only play at one volume, for example. They don't play with dynamics. However, they can play at phenomenal speed that outstrips anything a human being could do. But you just got to look at what these things are good for and what they're not good for, and use them accordingly. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I try to do with every bit of gear I have. You look at it in terms of its capacities and where it's best placed. If I want drumming on my music that's got elasticity and dynamics and sensitivity, then I'll play the drums myself. If I want aggression and really aggressively accurate timing, then I'll get a drum machine to do it. You know, it's just looking at what each thing's capacities are and using them accordingly.
Is science fiction important in Imaginary of Squarepusher?
That's an interesting comment and yeah, very encouraging. I mean, I don't know about science fiction. I'm not a real big reader of science fiction. I like the idea of thinking about the future, but I think when I read other people's ideas about the future, I quite often find it a bit boring. So I think I'm interested in thinking about the future, but I'd like to try to concentrate on my ideas about the future. I'm not a big reader of science fiction for sure, although there are little bits and pieces in that world that I have enjoyed. But yeah. Well, speculating about the future, I mean, it's trying to shape our situation, isn't it? And we all want to do that. It's natural. In some ways, science fiction is just a very kind of specific way of doing that. I.e., you thinking about development of our situation in technological terms. But this is also important to think about things in ethical terms, in economic terms, in musical terms. I don't know. Science fiction is just one way of looking at the future, isn't it? And it has its cliches, which is a problem. I don't once this thing starts to feel predictable and with its comfortable little club of people that like all these cliches, that's when I start to lose interest. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for this interview. Hope you come in France as soon as possible. After playing with Robot, you are now answering them. Ha 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 ha. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Et bonsoir.
Bonsoir, mes amis, le glitch.
Merci. Bye.
Bye.